Estamos na bacia de Pisco, no Peru, uma região inóspita onde chove a cada 30 anos. Aqui, os ventos são constantes e intensos, a vegetação é inexistente e o clima extremamente seco. Tais condições afastaram durante milhares de anos pessoas e animais. Mas, num cenário que parece desolador, esconde-se um tesouro para a paleontologia. Fósseis de baleias em pleno deserto, dezenas, centenas deles, têm intrigado a ciência e atraído pesquisadores até aqui. Sob o quente sol do verão peruano e a areia a perder de vista, jaz um mistério. O mais curioso não está apenas no fato de baleias fósseis se encontrarem no deserto. A área hoje está a cerca de 30 quilômetros do mar e acredita-se que a antiga enseada tenha sido coberta pelo oceano. O que parece realmente perturbador é a quantidade espantosa de baleias sepultadas juntamente com golfinhos e até pinguins sob o manto de areia. O Dr. Raul Esperante trabalha pesquisando fósseis de baleias aqui no deserto peruano há mais de 15 anos, em conjunto com uma equipe multidisciplinar de pesquisadores dos Estados Unidos, Peru, Espanha e Itália.
As I began studying these fossil whales, one of the main questions was, why are there so many? Why are they so well preserved? And why are they fossilized in the first place? Paleontologists and geologists use what's called the uniformitarian approach, which is we study modern environments and settings and processes in order to explain what happened in the past. Well, I did the same.
Então, na busca por desvendar o que ocorreu aqui, Esperante partiu da premissa comum entre os cientistas evolucionistas: o presente é a chave para o passado. Na prática, neste caso, começou a estudar o que acontece com baleias mortas no oceano atualmente, a fim de entender o que pode ter ocorrido às baleias fossilizadas. Para tanto, o paleontólogo espanhol percorreu uma verdadeira empreitada, não só na areia do deserto, como também nas águas do mar.
I went on several cruises out into the ocean to search for dead whales on the sea bottom. And we found several, and we monitored them for several months and several years. And we took lots of images, pictures, and then we saw how the decay process happens. And it happens very fast. So fast that in a matter of a few months to a few years, there's nothing left. What commonly happens is that the whale dies and may float for a few days or even a few weeks, and decay begins in the body. If the whale sinks, it becomes food for many other organisms that live in the ocean, like fish, sharks, crabs, mollusks, a host of different animals that see that big whale carcass as a banquet. So they began to eat out the soft tissue, the flesh. Whales have a lot of fat, which is a good source of nutrients for marine organisms. That may take a few weeks or even a few months, but eventually all the flesh is gone, eaten up by scavengers. The interesting thing is that even before all the flesh is gone, bones are also scavenged, especially by crabs and worms, a special kind of worms called oxidax worms that colonize the bones, bore into them, and in symbiosis with bacteria, they eat out the bones. So they perforate them, and in a matter of a few weeks to a few months, they destroy the bones completely.
O processo monitorado atualmente é um grande contraste com o estado dos fósseis de pisco, que não apresentam sequer sinais do início de decomposição nos ossos. Neste caso das baleias, a premissa uniformitariana não explica o passado, pois o processo atual não se equivale ao de outrora. Para que todos estes fósseis estejam aqui hoje, algo muito diferente deve ter ocorrido.
In order to a fossil to form, the organism must have hard parts, bones. A whale has bones. Rapid burial must occur. Otherwise, scavenging and physical and chemical breakdown will destroy the bones. And then the sediment in which the bones are buried must have the right geochemical conditions. So in this setting, we have the bones, but if rapid burial does not happen, the bones are not going to be preserved and fossilized. And that's what happens in modern environments. Dead whales decay fast and are not buried in sediment fast enough to prevent scavenging and decay and breakdown. So all the bones eventually are destroyed in modern times. There's the likelihood of fossilization in modern environments is almost zero. So that raises the question, why do we have fossils in the first place? So if we go back to the conditions of the requirements of fossilizations, we do have bones, and those bones must have been rapidly buried in order to fossilize. Otherwise, they would have been destroyed under conditions of slow deposition of sand and mud, just as we see in modern environments.
E diante de tantas centenas de baleias fossilizadas, a pergunta crucial é: como morreram e o que exatamente causou a fossilização? Para recompor a história, Esperante e equipe têm escavado os fósseis durante todos estes anos e analisado tanto ossos como as rochas e sedimentos.
So we worked different hypotheses. One of them is that they were killed by toxic algal blooms. That's a possibility. We have not seen that in the present, but it's a possibility that we are considering. Why? Because the sediments have a high content of diatoms, which are marine algae. Some diatoms are toxic in modern times, are toxic and kill marine and even land organisms. So we want to analyze the sediments, the diatom content in the sediments, and see if we can find toxic species that may have directly or indirectly contributed to massive die-offs of whales.
Outra hipótese é a morte de baleias em decorrência de muitas nuvens de cinza vulcânica que teriam sido inaladas por estes grandes mamíferos.
How could that happen? Well, we know that whales need to come out to the surface to breathe. And if they inhale volcanic ash, their lungs may have been destroyed, because when we look at the sediment under the microscope, we see volcanic glass, like shards with very sharp edges that would destroy the lungs. But again, these are hypotheses. I don't think we can prove any of them, but they are working hypotheses that we are considering in order to explain the massive amount of dead whales that happen here.
Outro detalhe surpreendente que os especialistas descobriram durante a pesquisa é uma evidência inegável. O grau de preservação dos fósseis apresenta-se uniforme entre todas as amostras encontradas, o que reforça a hipótese de morte em massa com um único sepultamento.
we have excavated tens of specimens of fossil whales. Some of them are fully articulated, meaning that the skeleton the bones are connected as they were in life. Others show different degrees of articulation or disarticulation. The bones are disconnected from one another, but they're still associated, they're grouped, so that you can say that it's a specimen. But all the specimens, all the skeletons show a high degree of preservation, the same high degree of preservation regardless articulation. This articulation requires some time during decay of the carcass. So you would expect to see here different degrees of preservation because you have the time to allow for this articulation. However, we find that the degree of preservation is uniform among all these specimens found here. Again, that's not what you see in modern environments when you find several whale skeletons resting on the seafloor in the process of decay. You see different degrees of preservation. Some of them are heavily deteriorated and perforated by worms and the bones destroyed, and others, they're still in good shape because they had landed on the seafloor recently. Well, we don't see that here. All the specimens are very, very well preserved. The bones are just like they were in life. And I believe that the possible explanation is that they were rapidly deposited, all of them at once. But still, the question remains, why then do we find both articulated and disarticulated specimens? And again, further work is needed to explain those things.
Como testemunhas silentes, os fósseis em pisco parecem colocar em xeque a premissa uniformitariana de que o passado se descortinou como o presente. Afinal, estes ossos não apresentam um único furo por necrófago sequer, como se realmente não houvesse tido tempo para isso. Dado o tamanho de baleias e seu grande número, algo descomunal parece ter tido lugar aqui, em um passado remoto.
Why are there so many fossil whales here? What we think is that we are looking at conditions in the past that were very different from what we see in the present. Conditions of different, maybe higher, much higher rates of accumulation of sediment in the ocean basin that prevented decay and scavenging and destruction and preserved the bones and fossilized them. So one main question is, what caused the death of so many whales? But another important question is, what caused fossilization? In order to have fossilization, as we said, you need rapid burial. Otherwise, bone would have been destroyed, as we see in modern environments. So we also have different hypotheses to explain that. And that's why we excavate fossils and we analyze the bones and the rocks and the sediment and so on, trying to explain what caused the fossilization of them. We think that they must have been rapidly buried in this mud and sand that then cemented and preserved the bone. But we don't know the mechanism of rapid burial. That is still something that needs further study.
Justamente por isso, uma das amostras mais notáveis encontradas por Esperante e equipe é uma baleia fossilizada praticamente completa, inclusive com a barbatana, e que, por assemelhar-se a um sorriso, rendeu ao espécime o carinhoso apelido A Sorridente. Interessante também é o sedimento no qual o fóssil está preservado. Foi depositado no fundo do mar ao cobrir a carcaça.
This is one of the most remarkable specimens of fossil whales we have found in this area. It is almost complete, almost a complete skeleton. This is the skull with the nasal bone here on top and the right side lower mandible here at the bottom. Here is the occipital area of the skull and the neck. The cervical vertebrae are down here, displaced from the connecting point with the skull. And the rest of the vertebral column and ribs, part of the lumbar and tail vertebrae are missing. Still, most of the skeleton is preserved, articulated, meaning the bones are connected to one another. And we can see that the bones are encased in a hard orange rock, but it's almost fully exposed. The sediment, the rocks around, has been eroded by the water, wind, etc. And is now fully exposed. This sediment, this silt, fine silt, accumulates also on the seafloor in present time at very low rates, approximately a few centimeters per 1,000 years. The likelihood of being buried and preserved and become a fossil is almost zero in modern environments. Why? This skeleton has an approximate thickness of 60 centimeters. At a rate of a few centimeters per 1,000 years, this skeleton would take a few hundred years to accumulate, or even more, depending on the rate. In some modern environments, silt accumulates at a rate of 10, 15, 20 centimeters per 1,000 years. That means that this fossil, this whale, this skeleton, would have taken 3,000 years to cover. But modern observations show that in modern times that the skeleton degrades and is destroyed very quickly in 3, 4, 5 years. So this should not be here, should never fossilized, have never fossilized if the environment in the past in which this whale was buried was similar to environments in the present. That's why we suggest that the environment in the past in which this whale was buried was different from what we see in the present. We don't know what it was like, but burial by sediment must have been very rapid, much more rapid than it occurs in modern environments.
O esforço de toda a pesquisa em campo tem sido recompensado com uma das mais relevantes descobertas neste deserto peruano. Uma evidência que pode ser uma peça-chave neste complexo quebra-cabeça.
There is even one more remarkable feature of this whale, which is the occurrence of this structure here. This is what is called baleen. Baleen is the filtering organ of these whales. These are filtering whales. They are called mysticeti whales. They open their mouth and they swallow large amounts of water, and then they expel it out and filter it through this organ in the mouth and retain small fish and krill. That's their food. This filtering organ is made of keratin. It's not made of tooth material or bony material. And it's only detached on the upper maxillary, detach on the gum. So when the whale dies, it detaches very quickly in a span of time of a few hours to a few days. So if this whale was exposed on the seafloor for several years or tens of years waiting to be buried by slow sedimentation, baleen would have been destroyed very quickly, detached, removed, destroyed in a matter of a few days or a few weeks. The fact that it's preserved, and it is preserved in an anatomical position, is a strong indication of rapid burial of the entire skeleton in no more than maybe a few days or a few weeks at the most.
Clássico exemplo deste grupo são as gigantescas baleias azuis, que para se nutrirem engolem enormes quantidades de água, filtram retendo o crio e pequenos peixes e então expelem o restante da água para fora do corpo. As baleen são as maiores em tamanho que temos hoje em dia e, curiosamente, constituem a maioria das espécies encontradas no deserto de Pisco. Um detalhe importante é que este órgão composto de placas de queratina, o mesmo componente de nossas unhas e cabelo, perde a aderência à mandíbula logo após a morte da baleia. E, para espanto da comunidade científica, entre os fósseis aqui no deserto estão quase uma centena de carcaças completas, que incluem barbatanas muito bem preservadas e ainda na posição de vida.
This filtering organ is not rooted in the maxillary as teeth are. It's only glued on the gum of the whale by means of an organic glue, natural organic glue that keeps the baleen attached on the gum. When the whale dies in the ocean, that organic glue that keeps it attached decays, and the entire structure, the baleen, detaches from the mouth and is lost. Usually currents take it away and is torn apart and breaks up and is destroyed. We've seen that that happens in a span of time between a few hours to a few days. So that's why we usually don't see any baleen at all in dead whales on the sea bottom. And when we do find it, it's so badly deteriorated that the likelihood of preservation is minimal. And that is the reason why we don't see fossilized, we have not seen fossilized baleen until now. When I began these studies, I searched for cases, specimens of fossilized baleen around the world. I visited over 100 museums, and I found a handful of specimens of fossilized baleen, some in California and some in other places. And I examined each of them. Well, it was just a few examples. And the reason is baleen does not fossilize. The likelihood of fossilization under modern conditions, for example, is almost zero, because it's soft tissue that detaches from the organism very quickly and decays fast. Well, interestingly, here in this desert, we have found over 80 specimens with fossilized baleen. And that's another piece of information, strong evidence that supports the model of rapid deposition of these layers. Otherwise, baleen would not be found in any specimen if rapid deposition did not happen.
E uma das maiores importâncias da pesquisa de Pisco é justamente que descobertas como a sorridente questionam o atual método de datação relacionados com a taxa de sedimentação.
Not only baleen is preserved in many of these specimens, but is preserved often in live anatomical position. Definitely that's not what you would expect if slow the position, gradually slow the position over tens or hundreds of years happen, as we see, for example, in modern environments. So I think that something was different. Something happened differently in the past that we still don't understand, we don't know.
Parece razoável pensar que um grande esqueleto pudesse repousar num piso oceânico ou em águas rasas durante milênios, sem ter sido perturbado por agentes físicos, biológicos que deteriorassem os ossos? O quebra-cabeça começa a tomar mais forma. Pelo menos aqui, nesta arenosa região de Pisco, algo muito diferente teve seu lugar no passado, como atestam os intrigantes fósseis de baleias que documentamos com nossos próprios olhos. Definitivamente, neste cenário do deserto peruano, as rochas parecem revelar muito mais sobre um evento na história associado a uma súbita catástrofe. E é isso que torna os fósseis tão fascinantes. Eles estão aqui, estão belamente preservados, como memoriais, alertando de um passado que não deve ser esquecido, tampouco ignorado. Quanto mais evidências como estas, trazidas à luz das areias de Ica, se descortinam, mais urgente é nossa necessidade de questionar. Até que ponto o comumente imposto por humanos deve ser tomado como infalível? É realmente o uniformitarismo a chave definitiva para decifrar nossas origens? Junto à comunidade científica, a pergunta "o que causou a morte massiva destas centenas de baleias?" permanece sem resposta.